When the Berlin Wall fell in November 1989, I was just a 16-year-old kid living in the suburbs of LA, dreaming up utopian systems in my bedroom. Beyond wondering suspiciously whether the Cold War was bunk, made up to make us behave no matter which side of the Iron Curtain we were on, I was innocent of what forces had been converging toward this historical tipping point for decades. What I saw when the wall came down was that people could be so inspired by love they'd walk away from power. I'd yearned for the ability to believe that such things were possible for as long as I could remember, but I didn't dare. I was a 16-year-old Jewish American queer kid who didn't know they were queer. I was having what was probably the typical experience for a queer kid at home and in school in 1980s suburbia. If I dared to believe that people could be so inspired by love that they'd walk away from power, I might just let my guard down and get hurt. Bad. That wall, it stood for longer than I had been alive. It didn't matter that it was half a world away, because of what I didn't dare believe divided me. Then it came down. Had I known that night that what was happening before my eyes was accidental? Had I known that the desperate East German government had only wanted to regain control of the country by letting their population blow off steam after months of street protests? Had I known that border officers and their commanders had been unwilling to shoot when they lost control, I might have dared to ask the question out loud. Couldn't anyone be so inspired by love they'd walk away from power? Couldn't we all? These East German guards were hardened men who had spent their careers manning the ramparts of a dystopian system that had tyrannized millions for generations. Their livelihoods, their very identities required that they continue manning those ramparts, rationalizing away whatever moral dilemmas they might have faced within. If these guys could walk knowing and willingly into the unknown, then surely we all could. It seemed that yes, anyone could be so inspired by love that they'd walk away from power. And if that was true, anything was possible. Anything. My mind hadn't yet been corrupted by left-wing, anti-American, cultural Marxist haters who would dare convince me that my own country was just as cynical a rendition of itself as the Soviet Union had been. I hadn't yet done enough 12-step work to realize how much invisible walls were shaping my own life and the society I was living in, and how much more real the walls you can't see are than the ones you can. Why, after all, did I still keep my exuberance inside even after the wall came down? Why did I still not dare explore changing the cut of my neckline or the length of my sideburns, let alone admit to myself that I yearned for an asymmetrical mane of turquoise? Bland was good cover, so I played along. A pretense to oneself that one is just nervous and socially awkward is good cover for exuberance that's turned inward like an ingrown toenail and festered into rage, so I played along. At least with the wall's fall, however, I dared to dream. I hadn't found my courage yet, but I knew that someday, somehow I could. Anything was possible within myself and the world. The night the wall came down was a chaos point, a point at which the small cascading changes or incidents occurring in a complex system have generated sufficient momentum to cause a state change throughout the entire system, perhaps altering its very nature. Luckily, under capitalism, we need not worry about chaos points that would suddenly rearrange our entire way of life in a single evening, because we don't have Berlin walls acting like dams that pen in our yearnings for freedom.
This is all wrong.
What was that? Did you hear something? I don't think I heard anything.
Grab that light. Grab that light. Grab that light. Grab that light.
2. Exclusive. Unless you live in a cave, you know about exclusive condos, exclusive auto dealerships, and even exclusive news, but did you know there's the exclusive life that you deserve? Heck, there's even exclusive dog food. I too struggle with seduction to convince myself that exclusive is just one of those meaningless throwaway words that marketers use to get me to pay $6 for a $2 product or service. I really wish I could convince myself that exclusive is just a synonym of prosperous or abundant, wealthy or rich, because this is one of those times when it seems a lot easier to dull my understanding, get off the discernment train, and not take stuff so damn serious. I imagine the experience of being abundant, prosperous, wealthy, or rich is one of spaciousness, being at ease in the world, being free from the dull, ever-present anxiety about financial uncertainty that colors my days and keeps me ever so dissociated. Who wouldn't want to feel free, safe, and embodied in the world, no matter whom they were with or where they went? I imagine that for the typical American living paycheck to paycheck, increasingly gig to gig, that safe embodiment is a rare and special experience. I'll readily admit that if I think I have to pony up an extra $4 to trick myself into having that feeling for 15 minutes while sipping a $2 cup of coffee, I'll often pay. God damn it, my nervous system deserves that break. I deserve it because I'm employed and playing the hero to hold on to my job and fearful of financial uncertainty. Or I deserve it because I'm driving Uber, working TaskRabbit, and delivering for a Grubhub 7 days a week, struggling to pay down my student loans and fearful of financial uncertainty. Or I deserve it because I'm unemployed and so fearful of financial uncertainty that I'm giving myself PTSD. Those coffee breaks themselves can become an addiction that earns you a seat in a 12-step program. Did for me. But if exclusive was just a synonym of prosperity, abundance, wealth, or even rich, that would be the end of the story. But it isn't. Those other words are potentially inclusive. By themselves, they describe what you have access to, but make no claims on what others have access to. It's conceivable that you can be prosperous while everyone else is prosperous too. The same can be said for abundant or wealthy. Though rich is often used as a comparative term, it isn't necessarily a comparative term. It's conceivable that you could be rich in a society where everybody's rich. You wouldn't be special for being rich then. You'd have access to more resources than you need and not have to work much for them, perhaps. But that wouldn't be anything unusual. It wouldn't make you enviable. It wouldn't make others burn with that special, secret, despairing, soul-distorting rage against you they can never hope to quench. So why is it that we don't see marketers peppering ads all over the place with words like prosperous, abundant, wealthy, or rich, but we do see them peppering everything with exclusive? Well, because those other hippy-dippy words can't get anywhere near exclusive. Those other words won't make others burn with that special, secret, despairing, soul-distorting rage against you that they can never hope to quench, quite the way that exclusive can. For something to be exclusive, somebody has to be excluded.
How dare you?
Honey, this is an exclusive party and you're not invited. You're not on the VIP list. So I'm gonna ask you to leave.
You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words.
Okay, so you're gonna just stand right here? Why do you have to make my job so fucking hard? This is an exclusive party. Do you not understand the meaning of the word exclusive?
People are suffering. People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing.
You're just gonna stand right here, aren't you? Okay, fine. I'm gonna call security because I don't want to deal with any of this shit. So when they come out here, do what they tell you to do, okay? God damn it. Let's be perfectly frank here. Whether marketers use the word exclusive, consciously or unconsciously, whether they're doing it out of glee or out of desperate reliance on an old trope to shine up a client product they know they can't sell otherwise, they're assuming that you're going to take pleasure at the prospect of excluding others and witnessing them burn with that special, secret, soul-distorting rage that they can never hope to quench. All the more so if people being excluded are afraid for their very survival. It's not enough to have a 3,000 square foot beachfront condo on the Mediterranean if any schmuck on the planet can stroll in and buy the one next door. To be a good member of that community, you have to do something special. Not only show that schmuck the door and call armed security when he doesn't get the message, but take pleasure in his pathetic resistance, his grasping helplessly for appetizers on unoccupied lobby tables as the guards kick his feet out from under him. Why would I take pleasure in that, you ask? Well, isn't it obvious? Revenge. For what? The helpless and unquenchable terror and trauma of having been excluded yourself, of course. Or at least the prospect of it. Even if you've never experienced that trauma directly, you've seen others experience it. And that alone is enough to traumatize you. Maybe enough to make you still want to share that trauma with others by forcing them to go through it. That's why the very marketers who plaster exclusive all over everything become our capitalism habits' most damning accusers. They're nakedly telling us that the outcome of the game is inevitable, devastating, wasteful, cruel, and unworkable. If it wasn't all those things, it wouldn't be pushing revenge fantasies into the heads of so many people that just plastering exclusive all over the place is a workable marketing strategy. These marketers might even be unwittingly showing us the way out. To be fair to modern capitalism, we humans were probably tormenting others downstream with exclusion games as a way of sharing our own exclusion trauma long before the rise of anything resembling modern capitalism. But that doesn't let modern capitalism off the hook for serving as the vehicle by which complicity in exclusion trauma has reached industrial scale and become mandatory for everyone to the point that we are forced to organize our lives and societies around maintaining that complicity. No matter what, though, getting others to burn with that secret, despairing, soul-distorting rage against us they can never hope to quench is not what we really want. It's just the booby prize we settle for because it's all we can let ourselves hope for in the game. And even the booby prize is dubious for most of us in reality. Shh. Besides, it's fucking tiresome. 3. Trans-capitalist cravings. In the summer of 1998, I was a 25-year-old queer college grad who now suspected they were queer, but dared not suspect too long. I learned to suppress any sign I wanted anything, since saying I wanted something was a surefire way to get what I wanted and myself belittled. In the summer of 1998, I discovered Burning Man. I found myself called to that first burn so viscerally that suppressing was hard. I couldn't help but describe my anticipation in destinal and even spiritual terms. I knew I had no idea what it would be like living for a week in an experimental city without capitalism and its excluder-excluded dynamic. I knew I might be scaring the shit out of my parents. Sorry, Mom. I knew it might be downright deadly. I knew it would have its warts, and it certainly does. But this was the kind of craving for freedom that would make me sound like a blithering idiot if I tried to describe it. A mind can be shamed into spouting inarticulate nonsense, but the body goes on telling its truth. Is this what it was like being an East Berliner, salivating behind the wall? Anyway, on the way home, I was still describing the experience in destinal, even spiritual terms. Then the anger came as the road signs became more and more familiar. Then the despair. Then the dread. Then the familiar hunching of shoulders returned, the swallowing. The wetness in my eyes. Sorry, Temple Beth Israel, the bar mitzvah didn't even come close to making me speak in tongues for almost 9 months about building a 60-foot wooden tower in the desert like it was 1999. I convinced myself I'd love my life in East Berlin, the San Francisco Bay, but on the way home from that first burn, the memory of what my relationship with my campmates was in capitalism also returned. On the playa, I had been catalyst, the one who had gotten everyone to overcome their fears about going. On the playa, we were fearless incarnations of Shiva, dancing on the ashes of our innocence as the flames leaped about us. When our eyes met, we tended to tear up and laugh uncontrollably. Back in capitalism, they were housemates, living in a cramped space, where the tension between the underemployed and the overemployed was palpable, as was that between the dish doers and the dish makers. I was the dude who'd ended up living on their kitchen floor trying to figure out what the fuck to do for going on 2 weeks now. When we got back from the burn, we picked up right where we left off. There wasn't much laughter in our eyes now. But before you tell me how you hate the desert and call me a dirty freeloading hippie, just consider for a moment that contrary to public opinion, being a freeloader is not an experience of bliss. It's shame, longing, self-pity, self-loathing, worry that your benefactors will get some self-esteem and pull the rug out from under you at any moment. It's a moment-to-moment experience of personal insufficiency, of circling around in your head with a singular obsession, trying to figure out what the hell is wrong with you so that you can fix it and stand on your own 2 feet. And then comes the shame over all that navel-gazing. I kind of have a hard time believing that it's a way anyone would choose to live in a free society. I suspect we accuse the secret cravings for freedom that we see in others and ourselves of being only secret cravings to freeload because we need to control ourselves and one another so we don't end up embarrassed and on the wrong side of exclusive. Judging from the fact that Burning Man went viral when we still didn't know what viral was, I guess it's fair to say that my cravings for freedom weren't exactly unique. And even if you do decide to write me off as a dirty sand-eating hippie, just consider for a moment that the explosion of Burning Man isn't exactly the only volcanically viral eruption in recent memory that attests to collective yearnings for freedom that get crazier with every recession and every scandal on Wall Street. I don't think it's just desert rats who would bolt like East Germans for the Austrian border if there was an Austrian border they could find a bolt for. I'm old enough to remember when the internet was going to give us a new economy. Then it was Napster, then Google, then Facebook. How about the real estate market circa 2006? Blockchain, anyone? Calm down, it's not like I didn't fall for half that shit too. I wonder if even the most crudely capitalistic of viral eruptions, investment bubbles and get-rich Ponzi schemes, ironically attest to just how desperate we all are to get out of this game. The problem seems to be that the more we try to win at capitalism to break out of capitalism, the more stuck in it we become. Like flies caught in a spider's web, feeding the spider with our exhausted minds and bodies. And of course we struggle. Fear of winding up on the wrong side of exclusive when exclusive has such real consequences is an incredible motivator. That kind of fear is perfect for keeping us willing, even self-negatingly eager, to hunker down inside the scripted relational roles we've convinced ourselves are functional human relationships. Employee and employer, landlord and tenant, debtor and creditor, consultant and client, content producer and content consumer, marketer and, well, Mark, sugar mama and sugar child? High and low, worthy and unworthy, the one who tolerates and the one tolerated. Funny, it's exactly those kinds of roles that we're trying to blockchain and burn our way out of, just like our grandfathers were trying to railroad and radio their way out of. Fear of winding up on the wrong side of exclusive ensures we'll play our scripted roles not as children would, with the passion and full embodiment that's possible when you know you can invent a new game anytime. But as we've trained ourselves to believe that grown-ups should play their roles, keep playing, because everybody else is too scared to stop. Everybody will accuse you if you stop. You'll just die if you just stop, so keep playing even if the role itself kills you. Keep playing even when the power imbalance implied by your role has reached such runaway proportions that the game itself has become a parody. No, don't even stop there. If you hope to get ahead, you have to run your family with such roles in mind, warily eyeing one another with tunnel vision eyes, making sure to see each other as nothing more than expressions of these roles is something they teach in $1,000 weekend workshops. No wonder we feel the need to do other $1,000 weekend workshops to remind ourselves that people are more than pieces on a chessboard. Did I do all the workshops? Baby, I worked for the company that put them on, so I could get them injected intravenously. Given what the stakes become, as the very ground beneath our feet becomes exclusive, we have to see one another as only stereotypical expressions of roles corresponding to ours to make it. We don't dare risk seeing one another as spontaneous, never to be repeated emanations of eternal mystery. If we admit to ourselves that our particular roles are often more shaped by our ability to overcome barriers to entry than anything else, then the grief of how we've treated ourselves and one another might make us blow our lives, and end up living on somebody else's kitchen floor. So we keep playing our roles that leave us so deeply colluding in the maintenance of our collective capitalism habit, that many of us have become willing to defend our habit to the death. Some physicists speculate that we live in an 11-dimensional cosmos, but every time I turn on the news, all I hear is flatland. We all hear it. Of course, we want out. Getting others to burn with that secret, despairing, soul-distorting rage against us that they can never hope to quench is certainly not what I want. It's probably not what you want either, even if you think so. It's not the alcohol that the late-stage alcoholic ever really wants. Last but not least, 4. Conclusion. So how do we get out of this mess? How do we get out of this mess before we're all killed off by the incels who drank the Kool-Aid about the exclusive life they deserve to live? I'm not totally sure. But as I said before, the very marketers who are plastering exclusive all over everything might be showing us a way. When we set out with smiling faces to exclude others, we're actually intimately sharing with them. We wanted somebody to hear us when that terrible experience of being excluded happened to us, and we felt our lives hanging in the balance. We wanted somebody to hear us as our own feet gave out, as our own stomachs knotted into tangles of nauseous yarn, as our own out-of-control bodies gave our tormentors exactly the entertainment they wanted. If we couldn't trust our own minds to stop the hormonal eruption associated with being betrayed by a universe we thought was friendly, how could we trust anything? Even if someone did hear, even if someone did care, would it have even mattered? If we couldn't trust that even someone's giving a shit would stop our pain, how could we trust anything? How can 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 we trust anything? You pulled yourself together, I see, but the hunger to be heard never went away, did it? Maybe if you exclude others and see them squirm, you can know at last that you've been heard. But even then, you can't be sure you're sure, can you? You've got to do it again. Baby, come and claim the exclusive life that you deserve. After all, everybody knows it's easier to settle for the booby prize than to feel all the buried grief over what we all know is lost forever. What's that? the exact opposite of exclusive. You know, inclusion, safety, love, sharing, connection, the freedom to be ourselves fully with everyone. The freedom to see one another not just as equals, but as spontaneous, never to be repeated emanations of wonder and eternal mystery. The freedom to invent new games, new kinds of spaces and places where you can discover through sloppy-ass play what the essence of your genius, your contribution will be. Ideologues be damned. The freedom to know that you can trust yourself, the part about cleaning up the mess when you're done. What you've always wanted. You know, participation. That's right. Feel that grief. It's gone forever. Let those tears flow. It's gone forever. Are you sure it's gone forever? Are you sure? Are you ready?